And we want to make an outlook into the future and to see what are some of the investment trends for this year. And this panel will be conducted by Hanne, who is the head of communication at dena, and she covered the topic of finance in the energy transition now for 20 years as a journalist. I'm really eager to hear what she's going to find out in this panel. Please give it up for Hanne.
Yeah, thank you. Very long day and very inspiring day here today. So much hope, so much power in the room, so much energy. And now in the end, we come to the question, where will this all end and who will be maybe the next star? And who will be the next good ideas where investors will go to? And who will be the next unicorn, the one company who is so successful that everybody else is motivated to follow. I want to discuss this issue with 4 very experienced investors and accelerators. I will start with Julia Padberg, ladies first. She's an investment manager at SAT Ventures, concentrates on deal flow sourcing there, and has been working prior to that in investment banking and consultancies. Julia, please come here on the stage. Our second participant is Audun Abelsness, Managing Director of Techstars Energy, who has basically been traveling for the last 16 days, as you have told me, all around the world. So we have really very fresh experience what is going on in the sector. He is Managing Director at Techstars Energy, which is, I would not even say an investor, it's much more than an investor what you do, and you're working in partnership with Statoil, Kongsberg and McKinsey to find new ideas in the energy transition sector and also in other sectors. And he has been working in the investor sector for many years. Prior to that, he was spent several years at PricewaterhouseCoopers, for just one station to mention, prior to your job now. So third panelist here on the stage is Thomas Birr, who is Senior Vice President, Innovation and Business Transformation at innogy. Thomas is with the energy sector since many years. Formerly, he was working for Mannesmann, then for RWE for a long time, and he is now, since 2015, in this position. Last but not least, we have Freerk Bisschop. You already heard him because he was also part of the jury here for the Startup Award. He's Program Director of Rockstart Smart Energy, also from Amsterdam, like Julia. He has also long experience in building up new businesses as an investor and as a manager. So, before I sit down, I want to ask the first question, because then you have time to give the first answer and we don't lose time. So to make it pretty simple, if we talk about unicorns, maybe everybody thinks something different about what a unicorn really is. I would ask you, what do you think is a unicorn, or what is your definition of a unicorn?
Well, unicorns are very popular these days. It seems like everyone's chasing for a unicorn and wants a unicorn, but actually, what I see from the unicorns we know is that they are creating a lot of hype and they're actually misusing their powers often. So I think this space of renewable energy might need no unicorns, but multicorns.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Julia, do you agree, or what is your definition?
I think the official definition of a unicorn is a privately owned company that's worth over 1 billion on paper. I think as a venture capital investor, it's more interesting to create a dragon, which by definition is a company that brings more than 1 billion euros or dollars to the VC investor. But I think in general, it's not something that you should focus on in itself, because if you drive up the valuation of a company by creating a lot of quick value, by a quick growth, by getting a lot of the quantity of users instead of quality, there is a risk of getting a unique corpse.
Okay, also sounds dragon does also not sound so pretty nice, to be honest. What do you say, Audun?
In a panel, we shouldn't all agree all the time, so that's boring. But I guess the definition is $1 billion, right, in value. You know, where I come from in Techstars Energy, we don't believe in building unicorns. We believe in building and supporting great teams. So I don't like this whole chasing for unicorns thing. I think it's flawed by definition. But of course, this whole energy space is so massive, and a lot of companies will succeed. So probably will be some unicorns in this space later on.
Thomas, do you agree?
Yeah, that's always the threat when you are the last in the row and there are already very perfect description from my peer panelists. I can only say a unicorn is what happens when a rhinoceros falls in love with a pony. Yeah, that is the only aspect I can add to this discussion.
Okay, maybe also not the nicest concept we should discuss here. Anyway, so you have mentioned multicorns. I think this is a nice idea because, like we have heard through the whole day, energy transition requires a different concept also of approach of companies maybe. And that means the idea a company could follow is like a multicorn, or what do you really think is a multicorn?
Yeah, of course, it's a little bit more than just a word play. What I mean by that is that rather than chasing for a monopoly situation from a new entrant in a market, which is often happening with unicorns, or is required actually to make those steep valuations to dominate a market, I think in this space we really need more players to join forces and change that whole infrastructure. The biggest machine in the world is the energy system, right? The electricity system, which needs to be adapted on different levels in different domains, and therefore I would love to see billion-valued companies, but those that really collaborate to change the system, and therefore I come to arrive at the multicorn wordplay.
What do the other panelists think about the idea from Freerk? Who wants to give an answer? Thomas, maybe you?
Yeah, what always strikes me a bit in our area of the industry is actually in energy there aren't not that many unicorns so far. For example, if you see the report of CB Insights 2016, there are only 2 nominated unicorns in the energy space, versus 36 in e-commerce and more than 24 in media or so. So when we think about, for example, in the Innogy Innovation Hub about our portfolio, do we find archetypes of, that would be great, that's what we want to see with our portfolios. We always have to see or find analogies from other industries. So what we love is a real disruption in terms of taking slack out of systems, simplifying things, increasing customer experience, where there is quite a lot of headroom in our industry. So for example, if we see the TransferWise of this world, which is clearly an example from fintech, we would like to see movements like that in, let's say, companies like Energy Web Foundation or Fresh, one of our hopefully our future unicorns in a couple of years' time, right?
Okay, it sounds like they are so seldom, like you said it in the energy sector, so do you also agree and see they are so seldom, and it is so, how to say it, also seldom for you as an investor to find one, that it makes much more sense to follow a different investment concept? Audun?
Okay, this world is dominated by the big companies, right, the huge energy majors, and it's clear that it's very hard for startups to get into this space. And that will drive me over to my follow-up point, and it is very important to work with the corporates. And in Techstars Energy, we kind of align those 2 stars. I mean, corporates and startups, and kind of make a connection between them. But I think it's a very tough space to be in, to break into, to be in the energy space. Yeah.
Julia and Freerk, do you agree?
I think that it is possible for startup companies who have a very smart software business model to have a very big impact on the energy transition, because the large corporates usually don't have the capacity to create those business models in-house, but they are looking for it. They do know that they need it to be future-proof. But then, on the other hand, I think it is intrinsically difficult within the energy sector, especially in Europe, to create unicorns that are extremely fast-growing companies, because in general, the big corporates, especially the utilities, tend to be very slow. So sales cycles are long, and it takes time to create that impact. So that's why I think it's very possible to create companies that are 100, 200, 300 million euros if you sell to utilities. But if you want to become a unicorn, you have to probably go direct to customers and users.
Well, I agree that in practice it's quite a challenge to allow the existing industry, which maintains that very valuable energy system, to work together with those innovators in an effective way. Either they don't get to know each other and get to work together at all, but even in some cases there's a tendency from the existing industry to fall in love with a startup, and I don't want to repeat that analogy from Thomas, but it could easily hurt a startup very much if a corporate falls in love with them too early. So what we believe in is that it's important to bring together more corporates from the industry in an environment where startups grow up, and allow them to work together in a non-binding way first before marriages and longer-term relations occur.
So I guess, Audun and Thomas, you can say something about this, because your background is in a way the big companies and the big energy companies, and you're still trying to find a way, how do you get in contact with the startups, and how do you set up this process, like Freerk said, that it's really a step-by-step process, and that in the end everybody has the success that you want to have.
Sure. So one of my hobby jobs for many years is also teaching innovation at one business school in Norway. And one of my kind of things that close to my heart is actually the whole bridging between big corporates and small companies. It's very hard. But what's cool these days for all you entrepreneurs in the audience is that all the big corporates want this desperately. And the startups also want it. But kind of the mechanism to bridge those two is hard. And that's why I actually joined Techstars Energy, to try to work with that. And now we're working with Statoil and Kongsberg and McKinsey, and those three corporates actually working close with startups to bridge it. But it's hard, everybody. It's very hard. It's very hard. But I love that, to be honest with you. That's my passion.
Well, yes, I would support this point of view. I mean, our philosophy in the Innovation Hub is clearly being at the edge, not, let's say, inhaling small, fast-growing business too quickly into the corporate. Let them grow outside the corporate. Let them be even, let's say, set up with a task to replace present business models and even disrupt present business models. So I don't know any compelling example of a startup which was incubated from inside the corporate, which grew and was successful. And I mean, our main task in the Innogy Innovation Hub is to also shield and protect startups from the bear hug of the corporate. And that also entails some structural issues. So for example, you should not, you should give up majority early on when you are self-incubating startups, when you are company building. You should not strive for, let's say, high shares. You should provide inroads to revenues, inroads to customers as a help, as a support, but don't, let's say, take too much shares of a startup that kills it, or at least you are running the danger to kill it early on.
Can I ask a question to both gentlemen?
Thanks for doing my job.
Because how do you avoid that the strategic interest of one particular corporate that you're representing becomes dominating or restricting to a startup? Because in those early stages, it's really impossible for a startup to determine whether they better work with either Statkraft or Shell or a building company for whatever reason. So how do you avoid that this becomes too narrow-minded and too narrow-confined for startups to be able to choose to go a completely different way that is not aligned with the strategy of your corporate company?
Yeah, first of all, it's day-to-day fight, yeah, and you need a strong top management commitment for a certain strategy and a certain philosophy. So you must be clear from day one onwards that you are innovating and that you are disrupting at the edge of the company, not from the inside. I mean, the inside stuff has to happen anyway. I mean, digitization of corporate end-to-end value chains is something which has to happen anyway as incremental innovation by the people who are doing the front-end business. But the real disruptive innovation needs to be protected by exactly that. And yeah, that's management commitment at the end of the day, and also constant argument and fight.
Do you have the same experience?
Very quick. Well, it's important to stress that I'm not a Statoil employee, I'm a Techstars employee, right? And I think big corporates actually hire companies like Techstars or Rockstart, I mean, great respect for you guys, in order to do this whole switch, because it's hard, and we are becoming kind of the soft and gentle layer in between the huge corporates and the startups. I think it's fair to say that a huge corporate can, kill a startup by just applying their own policies, right? I mean, the procurement agreements in a big corporate, takes a lawyer 2 weeks to read, and they'll bankrupt the startup, right? So we have to fix that, and these are things that Techstars helps big corporates in this transition.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I fully agree with the gentleman here that an investment from a large investment from a large corporate in a very early stage startup can be killing for the startup. And that's why, indeed, incubator programs are very important for seed stage companies, but also independent, sector-focused venture funds like Set Ventures are important for the Series A, Series B stage. Because even then, I think a large investment from a corporate that is a potential customer could be detrimental for getting other similar customers in. So it helps for corporates to, some of our LPs are large corporates like Shell, who see all our deal flow and all the more than 700 companies that we see a year, and then they cherry pick our later stage investments and maybe invest in them.
Okay, so we've heard different methods and models that you follow to make sure that the small startup is not killed by the big corporate, and that it's really a hard fight, and that you still have ideal way to do this, and that's everyday business to try and to make it better. But this is the structure and the model how to find really the good ideas and the promising companies in the end that are successful, the multicorns we have been talking about. The next question I would like to talk about with you is now, what are, from your perspective now, really the most promising sectors that we see in the energy transition field that you are investing in and that you are looking at intensively? Who wants to start? Freerk, maybe you?
Also polite, right?
This is not an investor advice, but what I really love to see is solutions that create self-driving grids, as I call them. We all talk about self-driving cars that have the intelligence on board to find their way. What I envisage is that local grids will be self-driving and not just managing the load in a proper way, but also taking care of all those millions and trillions of transactions that will occur once we get devices that charge and discharge or communicate with one another, and ultimately would need to be self-driving and almost autonomous or semi-autonomous to exist. And on top of that, I see a few of those developments actually emerge in emerging markets like Africa and India and Bangladesh, where systems are being connected in a smart way, which could be a leapfrogging mechanism for those markets that could create examples for business models and even technologies that we can apply in our Western existing grids. That's what I'm excited about.
Pretty visionary. Do you share this vision? What are your ideas, Audun and Julia and Thomas?
Ladies first.
Gives you more time.
Yeah, in general, we look at smart energy solutions. So it's based on the trends of digitalization and decentralization of the energy sector. So Zonnen, for example, the previous presenter, that's a very good example of creating decentralized energy. And with the Zonnen community, they're also balancing the grid. So that's I agree with Freerk that that's a very interesting area. But also, there are new spaces coming into the energy sector, like, for example, mobility. So with the huge growth of electric mobility, we see huge opportunities there also for charging and balancing the grid using all those decentral batteries around on the roads.
Cool. We tend to look at companies in Techstars a little bit earlier than Sonnen. So for us, it's actually how to find really, really, really good teams that can execute furiously. That's what we look for, like outstanding teams that can execute. And allow me to offer one little piece of advice to entrepreneurs out there, is that there's a lot of cool technologies and fantastic things out there, but not many of you manage to see the big picture. Maybe here in this audience, but not everywhere. So if you manage to build kind of a solution that actually has more than one part of the big puzzle, you need to understand that huge corporates, they usually would like to see a kind of a more finished solution, not just specific technologies, but something more holistic. If you manage to crack that code, I think you'll be able to sell better into big corporates as well. It's just a fairly general advice. But of course, solar is something that we need to talk about, right? But I'm also seeing when I'm traveling now that solar might be killing other things because things are not being set in motion. Other very expensive projects are not being started because people don't know where solar price is going in the next 12 months. And that's a really weird situation to be in. Renewable killing other things. Right? Do you see that as well?
Well, yes, I mean, pretty much so. I mean, our starting point is a long-term vision of how the world of energy, mobility, and human-machine interaction may look like in 5 to 10 years. And also, we are searching for the sweet spots to generate some value, maybe a little bit earlier. So, and along that idea, we have our dedicated areas of transformation, and these are basically four core areas we are looking into. One is what we call machine economy. Machine economy is driven by the vision of tomorrow machines and devices are not only communicating with each other, but doing autonomously business with each other. So the parallel economy of devices, basically, all the blockchain stuff, right? Second one is what we call disruptive digital. Disruptive digital is a bunch of people looking at the attack point in the classical value chain of energy. Guess 5 years from now, no utility exists anymore. What happens? What are the digital platforms which can destroy our business? Another one is what we call cyber ventures, driven by the idea that cybersecurity will be DNA critical for the future operational system of the decentral energy. And the last one is smart and connected, so everything around intelligent buildings and buildings as organisms with all the smart stuff inside.
Pretty interesting, because there was some overlap, but there was also some differences in between your investment focuses. What I would like to know from you is also, are you happy with the number and the quality of startup offers that you see today in the market in comparison, let's say, to 3 years ago? Do you see a good development in this sector, or would you say it hasn't changed so much? What is your impression?
Yes, for the past 11 years we have kept a deal flow database tracking all the European companies that are fundraising in the energy sector. And yeah, so we see 500, 600, 700 companies a year, and we see that previously they were mainly hardware-based tech companies, and in the past years they've transformed much more to services and software companies that have a more integrated approach. And yeah, we really like that. So we are happy with the quality of European deal flow.
Yeah, I have to say that we are looking for 10 global energy companies, Techstars Energy, and right now it's a cool actually the combination between hardware and software. Before it was more hardware or software, but now clever entrepreneurs, they combine it together. So I think that's really cool. So I'm very happy actually. We already, yeah, it's going to be a great program. Thanks.
Freerk and Thomas?
I'm always happy to see entrepreneurs, even if they have a silly idea, because it makes my heart tick. But in general, I do see that same shift to somewhere between hardware and software, which you could call smartware in a way. Because I think the hardware technology that we need is already there. On the other hand, we don't need more apps, because we're done with that, and smart just schemes, but really integrating clever hardware pieces with digital technologies is really exciting, and there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's ever growing. So I'm confident that we will see a lot of great stuff coming in the next years, also here on this venue.
Finally, Thomas?
Yeah, I would also agree. I mean, we hope. I mean, thanks God, we are in several locations. We are in Palo Alto in the Silicon Valley. We are in Tel Aviv. We are in London, and we are here in Berlin. And summarizingly, we say we like what we see. We also like the sheer amount of startups which is around. At the end of the day, the verdict is out in a couple of years from now how successful they all were. Given the fact that 9 out of 10 will probably die on the way, we will see how successful the remainder of 10% was statistically.
Yeah, anyway, if I take the right look at our clock, our time is already over. And how could a panel on this issue end better than with happy investors who are happy that there are so many ideas out in this room and everywhere in the world, and hopefully we'll see some of these ideas out in this room and somewhere else to become really a unicorn or a multicorn. However, thank you very much, and I hand over to Ole and Andreas to finish the conference. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Hanne.